Could the Miami Dolphins make a big move, and are multiple big moves coming soon? The Dolphins need to get more cap space in order to sign and draft this upcoming offseason, and we're going to be looking at some massive and major moves Chris Grier could ultimately look to make to create some cap space. And I mentioned that they need to. Yeah, right now they're in the negative, folks. They're $15.8 million into the red line, according to SPOTRAC. Now, over the cap has it at about 11.5, so who knows what the number actually is, but let's just say meet in the middle, and the Dolphins need to free up $12-13 million to comply with NFL regulations, and that's just to be under the cap. They would then have to create more if they want to address roster needs, win free agency, and to have enough money to sign their NFL draft class, which they're currently projected to have 10 picks in the 2025 NFL draft. And it's also important to note what the biggest needs are for the Miami Dolphins. They need to completely overhaul 2 position rooms. Offensive guard, they need a new starting left guard, a new starting right guard this upcoming year. You might have to have a new complete safety room. You could bring back Javon Holland, but you still, as of right now, don't have a safety in the strong safety room or the free safety room. You also need to add a lot of interior defensive linemen, a backup quarterback, and an off-ball linebacker too. So there's a lot of moves that need to be made, and a lot of positions need to be addressed. So you need to make something happen. That's the moral of the story, right? With you being $15.8 million in the negative, according to SPOTRAC, you need to get back to the green, but also create another probably $25, $30, $40 million in cap space to sign free agents. It's going to be lofty for Miami, but there are some moves that the Dolphins can make, and I'm going to project what they could be, and the big ones, that is. But before we do that, help us out by spreading the word of Dolphins Today. This is a very informative video, by the way, of what moves could be made for the Miami Dolphins to create cap space. If you have a friend, family member, or just want to help us out by putting it on social media, click share, select Twitter/X icon, click post to Twitter/X. Would be greatly appreciated because more people need to know what the Dolphins need to do this offseason. The first big move that could be made, and is probably one of the most likely moves, now the Dolphins may elect not to do this, and I'll explain why later, but restructuring Tua Tagovailoa's contract. He obviously is going to be in the first year of that 4-year extension he signed with Miami past offseason, 4 for $212, $53 million per season. And you could create a pretty decent chunk of change of cap space if you do a max restructure of Tua Tagovailoa's contract. It would lower his cap hit from $39 million in 2025 to $20 million. You could save $19 million in cap space just by restructuring Tua's contract. You could also restructure Tyreek Hill's contract to get more money and add kind of more cap hits later on in the timeline to help you this season. But Tua's contract is one that is going to be talked about quite a bit. And I think this is an intriguing situation to look at, and we have the complete financial breakdown of cap hits for Tua. Now, dead cap and other guarantees are not included, but when you look specifically at the cap hits, the current contract for Tua is on the left-hand side. That's what his cap hit is going to be for the next 4 seasons in each respective year. But if you did that contract restructure I just mentioned, where you save $19 million in 2025, lower it from 39 to 20, it gets spread around over the next 4 seasons starting in 2026. You get a $4 million jump, $4.8 million to be exact, in 2026, another $4.8 million jump in 2027, another $4.8 jump in 2028 to make it a $70.6 million cap hit. And then in 2029, when he's technically not under contract anymore, like he was technically not on the roster, but he would carry an $11.1 million cap hit. That's kind of where the money comes to, right? It creates basically a void year where you tack on $4.8 million over the next 3 seasons, and then the other contract money that you save for 2025 is in 2029 when he might not be playing for you. So it's a kind of tough decision to make here if you're Miami. You could get out of the way the contract is currently constructed. You could get out of Tua's deal after 2026. You could. You could pay him 25, you could pay him 26, and then if you don't like what you've seen on the field, He's continuously getting hurt. You could move off of that roster with 2 years remaining or move off the contract. But if you restructure that deal, it becomes pretty difficult to move off of him in 2 seasons when you have larger cap hits in 27, 28, and then $11 million hit in 29. It becomes more difficult if you restructure now. So it's really a tough decision that Miami's going to have to make on what they should do. Are you prioritizing trying to free up cap space now to win and build a roster for 25? Or are you going to provide and want and prioritize flexibility in 2-3 seasons if you do not want to keep Tua as your QB1? Very tough decisions, and I'm glad I don't have to be paid to make them. Well, let me ask you this. You saw the numbers on what the contract is now and what it could be and what the benefits are of restructuring Tua and the negatives. Would you restructure Tua's contract to get the $19 million in cap space now, but make it more difficult to move off of him in the future? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I said I don't want to be paid to make the decisions, and I'm glad because I actually probably am not going to restructure Tua's contract. Maybe, and just maybe, you can revisit this conversation next offseason if you need to create more cap space. If Tua plays 17 games this next season, plays well, the Dolphins make the playoffs, and you're like, all right, I feel more confident about the direction this organization is heading with Tua, Mike McDaniel, and company. It was like, all right, then we'll restructure next season where you can create more cap space next year to address other needs and maybe add some void years. But as things are looking right now, I want that flexibility to potentially move off Tua's contract following the 2026 season. So it's a ballsy move to kind of sit and wait, but I'm probably holding off on a Tua contract restructure and finding other ways to create cap space, whether it's Tyreek Hill or maybe this one coming up here, trading Teron Armstead. Now, this is a tough one because he was so good for you in 2024. But he's getting old. He's got a big injury history, and you could save a pretty substantial amount of money if you traded Teron Armstead post-June 1st, or he could also retire. Now, if he informed the Miami Dolphins that he was going to retire, you can designate that as a post-June 1st retirement, which would give you a pretty decent amount of cap space, or you could trade him post-June 1st as well. Or maybe you even just want to flat out release him, which would be kind of a ballsy move, but either way, here is what the exact situation is. And this would only happen post-June 1st. If he does it beforehand, it really doesn't save Miami a lot of money. But a Teron Armstead trade or release post-June 1st saves the Dolphins $15 million in cap space. So, if you remember what we said earlier in the video, if $15.8 million in the red, you basically get back even by making this one move for Teron Armstead. And he was fantastic last season, man. He was. And it would be hard for me to watch him leave because after the Dolphins traded for Armstead, gave him that contract, I wanted him to finish out his career here. And he was so good. He's a warrior, man. He is an absolute warrior. And he was one of the top 5 left tackles in all football last season when playing on the field for Miami. The issue is that he's just so in and out of the lineup. And he played through a lot of injuries this past year. But he also battles so many injuries. He's had knee issues. He's had thigh, quad, back issues. It's been so many nagging injuries that it feels like his career could just 1 second snap and be over. And he contemplated retirement last offseason, ultimately came back. We'll see what he does now in terms of if he wants to play another year or not. That would force Miami's hand in terms of potentially releasing him or trading him post-June 1st. But Armstead's status for 2025 is one I'm certainly keeping my eye on quite a bit. And we'll talk more about Armstead in just a second. But we are sponsored by Game Time. Love Game Time. Whenever I go to a live event, the last event I was at was Mavericks Timberwolves basketball game on Christmas. Ironically, Luka Doncic's last game with the Dallas Mavericks. I use Game Time to buy those tickets because it's so easy to buy tickets on Game Time. Game Time Picks is a great feature. I used it because it curates a bunch of tickets to find the best value for your event, so you don't have to filter and search yourself to find the best seats. You also get a full seat view, panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and you also know that it's the lowest price. If you find a ticket on a different service that's a lower price ticket, Game Time will credit you 110% of the value because they know they guarantee the lowest price. They also have great customer service. If you're a procrastinator and buy your tickets, they specialize in last minute tickets. Game Time is the easiest way and most assured way to buy your tickets. So join me by downloading the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS when you sign up to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, first purchase only, but create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I love Teron Armstead. I do. And I love the way he's battled for this Miami Dolphins organization over the past couple seasons. The thing is, you already planned for him to be replaced. Like, you planned for this year to be the final season. So why not make that a reality? Whether he retires, whether you trade him post-June 1st, whether you cut him post-June 1st. That $15 million is so valuable to Miami right now where I think you have to do it. And, yeah, you have a lot of needs on this offensive line. Got to fill left guard. You got to fill right guard. But the thing is, you used a very high-value draft pick, top 55 last season, on an offensive tackle out of Houston, Patrick Paul. You did that for a reason, folks, right? You did it to be the long-term Armstead replacement because Paul is not going to move inside to play left guard or right guard. So are you planning on having a second-round pick sit behind Armstead another season? Are you moving Austin Jackson back to a guard spot and moving Paul to right tackle? Probably not, right? You probably plan on Paul being your left tackle, which is why I think either Armstead retires or Miami moves off of him to get that cap space. And make sure you are subscribed because when the Dolphins make roster moves, make decisions like maybe cutting Teron Armstead or drafting or signing players, we will have you covered. So hit that sub button and join us here at Dolphins Today. Now, as we look at what Patrick Paul did as a rookie, it wasn't perfect. I'm not going to claim that he had an unbelievable rookie year. He actually probably, for the most part, struggled, if you will. Pro Football Focus was not kind in terms of his grades. Now, he did kind of get the raw end of the stick because a couple of his starts came against really good teams, right? He had to play against the Houston Texans with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. That wasn't great. He had to play very early on in his career in Week 4 against the Tennessee Titans, battled against a pretty solid pass rush there with Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and some other guys getting after the quarterback. But to me, Paul was always a developmental guy. He was never meant to come in, start right away in year one, and be an unbelievable offensive lineman. He just wasn't. Now, I do believe in his long-term ability. I believe that when he gets his hands on you, it's hard for you to get free because he's so strong, he's so long. As long as he continues to refine his technique, improve his footwork, I think he's going to be at least an average offensive tackle in the National Football League. It's time to let the young man play. It would be a misuse of assets to have him sit for another year behind Teron Armstead. So to me, trading Armstead post-June 1st or cutting him post-June 1st to save the $15 million is the best way to go about things, but maybe he just retires and takes the decision out of your hands. But either way, if you can get a 6th, 5th round pick for Teron Armstead, I'd absolutely do it. All right, let's move on to the final one on today's show, and that is Bradley Chubb. Could the Dolphins cut Bradley Chubb post-June 1st? I'm starting to think that it's more likely and that I would probably do it because he actually would save you the most money. A restructure of Tua, $19 million. Teron Armstead, $15 million. Bradley Chubb, if you trade him post-June 1st or cut him post-June 1st, saves you $19.5 million in cap space this season. Now, a trade post-June 1st becomes dicey because you obviously wouldn't be able to get that cap space for free agency. But if you release him and designate him for post-June 1st, you would get that right away. And I think that's probably the smart move. Unfortunately, Chubb is getting up there in age. He's coming off a catastrophic knee injury that had to deal with his MCL, ACL, LCL, and you just don't know and don't have the confidence that he's going to be able to return and be elite right away. And he's also had an injury history too. He missed a lot of time in 2021 due to injuries. He played 16 games in back-to-back years in 22-23 and was amazing for Miami in 23, where he had 11 sacks before that knee injury in week 17 against the Baltimore Ravens. Bradley Chubb has been phenomenal in Miami. There's just no debating that. But he also, by the time would return for the Dolphins this upcoming fall, would have not played football for damn near 18 months. And you don't know how he's going to return from that knee injury. And with a cap hit of $29 million, there's just absolutely no way you can justify keeping him on this roster on that price tag. So you either have to restructure him to create cap space, or you have to release him post-June 1st to save $19 million. It's going to be a tough call, which is why I'm throwing it to you guys before I give you my official thoughts on it. Should the Dolphins cut Bradley Chubb post-June 1st to save $19 million? Type C for cut, type K for keep. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I am doing it. I really am. The $19 million is just too valuable. It really is. So, yes, I'm cutting Bradley Chubb. Because think about it. I know it would be tough, but if you were to hypothetically release Teron Armstead and Bradley Chubb as your two post-June 1st one designations, you get two. You do both of those guys. You cut both of them in the next 4 weeks. You designate it for post-June 1st. You get the cap space now. That is $34 million in cap. You go from in the negative 15s to now you are at about $18.5, $19 million in cap space. You factor that in with other contract restructures to Tyreek Hill. Now you're talking closer to $30 million in cap space. Release Raheem Mostert, Durham Smythe, and some of these other guys like Jake Bailey that would not have a lot of tough cap hits and dead caps. Well, now you're talking $48 million. That starts to give you a chance to build out some of your roster in NFL free agency with good valued contracts, and you are able to sign your NFL draft class as well. It's not going to be easy for Chris Grier this offseason to manipulate cap to be able to add to this roster because there's a lot of spots that need to be added to, but those are three of the biggest moves that could happen. You do all three, you're sitting here with $38 million. You restructure Tyreek Hill. Now you get to $50 million. You can get up to $60 million in cap space by doing contract restructures, post-June 1st releases. It will affect you in 3-4 seasons, but if you want to put a more competitive roster together in 2025, there is a pathway to do so. That will do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because as news comes in around the Miami Dolphins, we will have you covered with live shows and videos every single day, so join the channel.